continue, because initially you'll think, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to quiet my mind. But, this is not something you do like for a few days or a few months. But what will happen is that, after a year, you will see results after 5, after 10. It's just like building muscles, it's the only thing you don't see these muscles. It shows in your daily life.
Okay, I need to break in here because it's after 9 o'clock and time for us to get started with the Right Stuff group. One of the things that I think we can cover here is Roxana sent out an email based upon emails that she'd like to send out and would like to get some feedback. Not sure how many people read it, so I put it up here on the screen. Roxana, do you want to go ahead and explain to everybody what you're looking for?
Yes, sure. So based on the feedback that I received a couple of weeks ago on an email that I wanted to send to participants and actually also the EDMs, I realized that I was trying to do too many things in one email, and it's clear to me that I need to get the attention immediately of the one that is receiving the mail. The attention needs to be there the moment they see the subject line. And then I need to be short and concise on what it is that I'm expecting. And I'm doing this, and I want to just remind everyone, because I have, like right now, I have 6 groups starting, many participants of various organizations, various EDMs, don't have the time to sit with each one of them. So this is my attempt now to start getting the EDMs to clarify the goals. If it's them participating, then clarifying their organizational goals. That's the first letter. And then I have a second letter where it's a direct report that is attending. So there are 2 different mails. I have to say that I was supposed to work on a third mail where there is a person from the organization who is not a direct report attending, but I didn't get to that. But I believe that with the feedback that I'll get today, I will be able to actually complete that third email also. So what I like to hear from you, do you think that this is an improvement on what I did before? Will it work? If there are too many questions, I know I put a lot of questions in one of those emails, but I just want to hear which one would work. These are questions I've heard from you and other people. So I'd like to hear what you think of these emails and what can be done to make them even better.
Okay. I already gave you some feedback, I know, and I appreciate your response to me. Very nice. You hit 2 points. The first one is, how do you get their attention at the very top of the email? And I think when you have three points below that, 3 is a magic number. That's about as many as any human wants to see. Bullet points, you got 4, so apparently humans will think that's 1 too many. I mean, I don't know which one you'd want to remove, but you didn't really have to. If you grabbed their attention before going to the numbers or the bullet points with some sort of punchy statement. I don't know what I mean by that really, but a statement that really whacks them in the eyes, upside the head, in their brain, and well, geez, that's a good question. So I would say that to get them prepared to think about win-win and behavioral change and such, you could pick your favorite question that seems to get people's attention and it kind of rivets it to what you're going to ask them to do.
Dr. Al, where did you come up with the number 3? Is that something that came out of a book, or is that something that has been actually proven?
Yes and yes.
Because what I see here, she's covered exactly what she wanted to cover, and she's not being real wordy. She's
Yep.
being right to the point. And the only thing I would maybe recommend was, would she want to put a date, a time factor that she needs this information, when it's supposed to be, she needs to get it back to her, or they need to fix that, or need to work on this.
The three as a magic number is an old idea that was in books and not around books and kind of throughout the world.
How old?
How old? The Greeks.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Because things have changed today. We have a lot of, a lot more technology, and
Yeah.
a lot more with the emails. It's available. I know that, people I can only probably remember 2 things, where instead of trying to remember 3.
Well, there you go.
But that's me.
That's me too. But so here's I would take this away rather than, well, how many, but make sure that the most gripping one, the one that's got the biggest power to hit somebody's brain and gets them started to think, make sure that is the first one. That's the most important thing. And if they don't remember the second or third, or they get tired, or they go to sleep, or whatever they do, make sure that the first one grips them. And if that's a question, 1, 2, 3, that's fine. If it's a leadoff banner, that's fine. But if one of the things, both this is academic and practicing psychologist stuff. If you want people to engage any number of statements, you need to set their brain up, preparing them to engage them. And if you do that, you get more impact. We used to do this in mailings. I mean, we did, we were doing sales mailings when I was working with the profiles people. And the question was, well, how do you get them to read the rest of the email? And the person who was in charge of the outfit came up with this question, which I've shared, which is, have you ever hired somebody who did better in the interview than they did on the job? And I tried that question a number of times afterwards, and it always, somebody, you could see their eyes kind of go up to where they're trying to think about that idiot that they hired. And, and then they'd smile and they'd say, that's a good question. And they tell you a story. So that told me that the question was powerful enough to get their brain engaged. And it's hard to find those questions. God knows I tried, but I keep monkeying around. So.
Well, I agree with that, 100%. Something, because, when I'm reading emails, and I get a bunch of them every day,
Yep.
I'll look at the first line, and if it doesn't, like you said, if it doesn't grab me, it's going into the trash file.
There you are.
Now, unless it's from Sam or from somebody with LMI.
Don't say that to him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Unless it's from Sam or from somebody from LMI, then I'll read through it to see what because usually there's a lot of meat there from that. But I get different other things. I get emails from management people, some leadership groups, and also, I look at it as I don't have the time to sit and read everything 100% and soak it all in.
Yep.
I may put it in a file to come back to later whenever I feel like I have time. That's what I do. And I'm sure that's probably what Roxana's running into, is a time factor. Is that right, Roxana?
Yep, I agree.
Correct. And I like to mention that my intention is to follow up with a call, and not too many days after I send the email, because we know that an email can get lost in hundreds of emails. So
Yes.
a good question. And Dr. Al, if you have any example of a good question for an email like this, it's more than welcome. And from anybody else, because that's what I'm looking for. I did put 3 statements, but I'll change that into a question.
Okay, I have a little bit of my input in looking at this. How much, here's the question first, how much time do you think it's going to take them to complete everything you have in this email?
It will vary, Sam, because
Give me a high, give me a low.
okay. I would say a minimum of one hour. That would be really a minimum. And it could take also 3 hours, depending on the person and what their challenges are.
Okay, so the average is 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
So, and because what I'm looking at here is if I get an email, I'm reading this email, my intention is to complete the email so I can move on. This is not an email that you can just complete and move on. This is an email where they're going to have to, 1, print it out, 2, schedule time to complete what you're asking them to complete. Because if it's going to take 2 hours, there's a number of attachments here, a number of things you're asking them to do. So, and this, I'm just thinking through this. Something that says, first of all, print out this email. 1, 2, schedule an average of about 2 hours, okay, can be broken into segments, in order to complete all this pre-work in preparation for a successful outcome of the program. If they do that, I think they'll be ahead of the game. Because the other question I have is, how many people actually come prepared with all this information completed?
They don't. And actually, I remember the last time we discussed this, one of the feedback that I got from Dr. Al is that basically we need to ask them to start preparing, but not, I will not expect that by the time they come, and this is my experience, that they will have worked on it. But then I will go through this with them in the first pre-course session. And if I do things even better, I will start looking for the goal like Frank Raz does in the sales interview. So I will just need to clarify maybe a little bit more. But
Sure.
for now, I need to actually have them maybe just print it out and just glance on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll discuss this, and I will actually ask them to come with the results to the session so we can talk about.
Okay, now you said somebody from the office is going to follow up with a phone call, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, that should be stated in here. Okay, in my opinion. Okay, and for whatever that's worth. Okay, to let them know that, you know, we'll be following up within 3 days to see if there's anything we could help you in completing this material. Now, if you break things down into small increments and know specifically what it is you want them to do, because, you know, this can be really for an individual who has never worked in a program before, never done anything like this before. This could be a daunting task.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sam, could I jump in there?
Sandy,
Tis I.
jump
Sorry.
right in there. Bail me out.
No, I'm not bailing you out. I did print it out because I opened it up and I tried to do it, Roxana, for you, on your behalf. I tried to do it from a participant's point of view. So I saw this email from you and I thought, oh, there's from Roxana. This is for that new class that I'm starting, right? And so I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to read this, but better yet, I'm going to print it out so I have a list of the things she's asking me. So I printed it out and then I started reading it and I thought, oh, okay. All right, that, okay, that, okay, that. And then I'm starting to feel really overwhelmed.
Yep.
And my first thought was, oh boy, what did I get myself into? I understood this was really going to help me find some more time and help me feel less stress. And right now I'm feeling choked. So maybe I'm an exceptional participant, but that was my gut reaction to looking at it in printed form on my desktop.
Can I add something to what you just made?
Absolutely, that's just my gut reaction, Roxanne. Doesn't make it right or wrong. Just feeding it back.
Good gut reaction. I've been messing around with some brain tricks to try and get through the problem that we're talking about. Here's one. We think we know which one is the most important question to us. And all three maybe, but we could even rank which one do you really, really, really want to know about. Well, that's good for us. But the people we're dealing with don't know. And you're sort of asking them to answer questions and take a lot of time. And they're not sure which one is the really one that's going to make a difference in their lives. So the trick is to start, that I'm using is to start with this question: which of the following is the most interesting question that you could answer? And if interesting is not the right word, what of these questions are you most curious about? Third one of four, what puzzles you the most? I don't use all three of those. I give them one or two. And the final one is, what do you want to find out about? So before you ask them to think logically, kind of ask an emotional question. What do you feel interests you? And then let them identify that one. Even if they just do that and don't answer the questions, you're a step ahead, because then you know what to talk to them about. That's my game.
Dr. Al, so you're talking about questions, and actually I want to just clarify, there are two different emails. There is one with a whole bunch of questions.
Mm-hmm.
This is for the EDM that is sending a direct report that has all the questions, and the other one for the EDM himself that has all the different requests for them to complete. So you're talking right now about the second one, right?
I'm talking about any email that asks people to think and respond.
Okay.
I'll say one.
May I say something?
This is not my crazy brains talking. This is an old classroom lesson. I hate to tell you, it's a classroom thing. You got a bunch of kids in the room. You don't really give a rip about being there because they get up earlier, because they're hungover, or because whatever. And you're up there and you're attempting to get them to give a hoot about the information you are imparting. And that's called show and tell. We'll tell you and we'll show you, and you just have to sit there and suffer. Another method is to say that start with a puzzling question. Okay. And it has to be a good puzzling question. It has to relate to what you're going to talk to them about. If it's a good question, you'll see them sit up in their seats, maybe grab their pencil or pen, and they'll maybe start nodding their head when you say, another question. So engaging them with questions about interest, curiosity, puzzlement, and find out about something, engaging them with those four questions kicks their mind on sometimes, unless they're too hungover, and you get a better result from what you ask them to do. That's demonstrated all over the place. I won't give you research. I won't get academic. And it works in the business world. So that's
May
what
I say something? May I say something?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
go
shut up.
Rannick.
Yeah. You know, there's a question that emerges, and that is, why are athletes and entertainers the highest paid? And part of it is because they appeal to audiences that like entertainment and like to relax and have fun. And why is that relevant? Is because I think that most of us want a few things. We want to accomplish as much as is possible, as quickly and as easily as is possible. And so when you speak to me, I want you to come making my life easier and helping me have greater success and richer experiences as quickly as possible. I don't want more work. I've got enough on my own. I don't need you to add to my plate. What I would entertain is you're saying to me or inviting me to think about what success looks like, what I want to accomplish, and then make it easier for me to step into the process of achieving it. So the questions here are right on. The comments, the invitation is right on. I would just tweak it, Roxanne, to start with inviting the reader to imagine this beautiful outcome and experience initially. And then add, in order or so that I might help you best get there or get there most quickly, would you take a few moments to think about and complete these few exercises? And to the extent you can, make yourself available to help. And to that end, you might say, I am available for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes to make this process as easy and comfortable for you as possible, right? So it's figuratively coming alongside that individual to lighten their load, to make it easier for them to walk up the hill where they can experience that panoramic view.
Yeah, but Roxana doesn't have the time to do that.
Well,
See, that's her problem.
Just a second,
and-
Lane. Sorry to interrupt, Lane.
Okay.
I before you continue, because I think what I got, and correct me if I'm wrong, Renwick. I think what I got from this is that the initial communication needs to be welcoming, inviting, maybe even a little bit fun, to get them curious and interested in coming, and actually ease them into the process. Because if I invite them to think about what success looks like for them, if I let them know that I will be there to support them, and instead of asking them to complete, to prepare, I say, just glance over these different points and we'll discuss them further. It's a very different approach.
Yes. Again, I don't know, but I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me and many of the people I encounter along the way. We want an easy life. Now, there are things that involve what we have come to call work that help us get and experience that easy life. But please don't call it work. Please, I've got enough of that. Make it a game, make it fun. The whole idea of the game of work, for example, which we're all familiar with. Let's I'd never forget this, and I don't want to take much time, but some of you were probably present when Paul Brown, someone whom I admired greatly, a legend in LMI, had presented at a retreat and did an outstanding job of sharing how he had helped a bank through his strategic planning and strategic development dramatically improved performance and results. But I remember distinctly at the end of his presentation, he looked at us in the audience and he said, but I've got to share something with you. I've been a student of leadership. I've been a practitioner of leadership for 35, 40 years, whatever the time frame was. He said, I've set goals and I've achieved them, but scarcely would I achieve the goal, I would move on to the next without taking time to celebrate. And as he said those words, he became incredibly emotional, almost in tears. And you might ask, why is that? Well, it's because he recognized somehow that there's a process, a part of this that involves celebrating and having fun. And when we do that with our clients, I think they're more engaging, they're more ready and willing to participate. But when we ask them to do more, that becomes, again, the word has been used several times in this discussion. It becomes overwhelming.
Yeah. Can I grab a point you said? May I, please?
Sure.
A wonderful word, two wonderful words. The first one was imagine. When you say, imagine what's the most difficult thing you have to do. Well, I don't want to imagine that. Well, okay, imagine, and then you give them something to put in their brain and let it rattle around. Imagine. That is an engaging word. So if you are wanting to engage the person in a process, using the word imagine is a very powerful way to go. A second one right after that is that if they imagine for a little bit, then you can say, well, if you do this, then what will happen? So if then is another imagination. And if you want to push on with this sort of material to get them into your game, having them imagine and asking them to think, if you do something, what will happen? Those are very powerful forces. And Renwick, in my brain, you were talking about those in the Paul Brown example. That's outstanding. Thank you.
And I'd like to add to this also that not too long ago, I was listening to a podcast where it says that the reason why children learn so quickly is because they have a lot of fun. And if you make learning fun, then there is a better chance of people actually wanting to learn. But then the big question is, okay, I'm starting to get what needs to change in terms of these emails. And I guess this might be a different topic for a different session, for another session, and that is, how else do we make our sessions fun for our participants? Because I think I'm a little bit too serious.
This is Pete. May I ask a question?
Go,
Great
Pete.
thought. Yeah.
Do any of y'all use what we call a manager-mentor agreement?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I think that's kind of powerful because you get a commitment, because in mine, and I'm sure in yours also, you ask them to sign it and date it. And this, I'm sure all of y'all have these, and it just tells, our clients tell us the key participants achieving measurable long-term results. That was when we get that triangle communication going, and then we just simply ask them, are you willing to do these things? And then to sign off on it. And the way I do it is I send this home with the participant in the kickoff session to their manager mentor and give them 2 weeks to let them just kind of think about whether they're going to really participate or not, and turn it in to me after the second session. And part of that is, are you willing to visit with me when I call you? And of course, we also ask them to spend at least 15 minutes a week with their participant to let the participant show them what they're accomplishing, what they're working on, what their goals are, and so they can get the feedback to them. and that that helps me get a commitment. And if they don't turn one of these into me, that tells me that their manager isn't willing to work with them, and so I have to take a different approach with that individual. So sometimes we just have to keep it simple and not get it too complicated for that manager. We just ask them, are you willing to do these things? And if they say yes and they've signed it, then you've got something going for you.
Okay, Roxana, I do have something that I want to go over here with you. Remember, because you're talking about the win-win and having them come up with goals for the class. And remember I said, when does the win-win agreement start?
Yes, in the sales interview.
Okay, so in the sales interview, you take notes, correct?
Correct.
Do they take notes?
No.
Generally not. So when you find out what their prime buying motives are, what it is that they'd like to accomplish, okay, they probably have forgot because they didn't take notes, but you did. And you can actually very easily have a template, but personalize it by reminding them, based on our conversation, some of the things you said you wanted to accomplish were. Okay, that way it's going to bring it to the forefront and remind them of why they're doing what they're doing. Now, I just, that came to my mind because I think that's something that I used to be good at. I always kept notes, and I used to always remind people what they said, just so we can keep on the straight and narrow. So that's 2 cents.
And that is easy when it is the EDM participating. My biggest challenge is when they have someone of their organization attending, and they don't tell me what it is that they want the person to accomplish or what the focus goal is. And I don't get, sometimes I don't get appointments for a very long time. And so there are two separate situations here. One is getting a participant on board that is not an EDM, and getting the EDM on board. So the second letter in this email is for the EDM to help me clarify what it is they want for their participant, their team member. And so there I like also a little bit of feedback. I do get it, all the feedback I've received so far. I understand that when I'm approaching the participant, either be an EDM or a direct report, anyone from the organization, it's important that we ease them in. But then how do I go about get that focus goal from the EDM?
You ask them, you call them on the phone and say, what would you like to see me help so-and-so accomplish?
Can I not send an email and refer to the email? Because first of all, it's not always easy to get them on the phone. I've looked for some EDMs for 6 months and not.
True. But that would be, see, that's a separate, you're not asking them for a whole lot of things. You're asking them for one thing specifically.
Okay.
Okay. Here in this, you're asking to me, you're asking too many things. And that's why I said, how long is it going to take them to accomplish it? But if you ask them, what would you like to see, see this individual accomplish? And or is there somebody else within the organization that would be better for me to talk with about this? Because that person may not be a direct report, may be an indirect report. They may not know specifically. They may say, well, the person that they actually report to is so-and-so. Talk with them. That way, at least you have a direction to take.
Okay, so So there also simplify and not too many questions.
Right, correct.
Okay.
All right. Now,
Can I jump in?
yes, you can.
On that point, I might be inclined to send them the email, Roxana, recognizing the challenge you have, getting hold of them and say, got your email or got your directive or whatever it is you got from him to put this John Doe in the class. I would be inclined to write, I got your email. My intention is to do the best job possible and move him to whatever point you want him at, or help him do whatever you need him to do. But help me understand and clarify specifically what it is you want him to accomplish. Why is that important? And what difference is it going to make to you or your organization when he does? And that's it. Send this back to me immediately. We have a deadline. We start class on such and such date. Please respond before then. I don't know if that would work, but I'd be inclined to try it.
And what do you do if they don't respond?
Send it a second time and put in important, urgent, send him a carrier pigeon. I don't know. That's something that gets his attention. And like Sam said, I'd find out who else is responsible for this area. And I maybe would CC that person on it. The urgency is the start date. There's a drop dead date there that we need to go in class, and you need to have what they want and why they want it and what's going to be different.
Do they
Yes.
have a secretary or assistant that you can relate this information to and say you're sending this to see and get her on or him on your side and let them know that this is important to get done?
In some cases, we have people we can get to, but I have this one particular organization that, for instance, has sent a total of 16 people, and we had one person that became sick, and 8 people dropped out. And they did
One person got sick and 8 people dropped out?
Yes, and I recently spoke to the human resource manager, and he said that was not acceptable, and he was angry because the managers of these participants accepted that they just dropped out, and so they're looking into it and see what's going to happen next. But this organization, I called, I mailed, I called through different people to get in touch, both with the EDM, but also with a manager who actually had started the whole process of an in-house group. At no avail. We really did call many times, mailed many times, and actually the secretary of the director, one of the directors said to me, you know, this is not acceptable. I feel so ashamed that this is happening, but that's how it is.
Sometimes you get to a point where you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely something amiss. And personally, I would want to know what that is, why that is. I would interview the people, find out why they're dropping out. Again, your time is different, but that's for my own edification to know what and how to fix it. I would do that.
They were not available, Sam. We actually, I had Sonaris contact them, and they would not respond. They didn't want to say why. They said they already mentioned it to their managers.
Okay, then I'd get a hold of the manager and find out. I mean, I'm the kind of person, and everybody's different. I'll sit on their doorstep. They ain't going to get away from me. But I know you're on the island, and the people on the island are nice and polite.
Not always.
I'm blessed enough to be in the United States where we can be rude and crude at times in order to get the job done. Now Sandy, she can do it with a smile on her face and make people. I just don't have that skill. Not that I can't develop it. I just chose not to use it.
I have a client who once said to me that some people have the ability to send you to hell, and people gladly go.
Right. That's a definition of diplomacy. The ability to tell somebody to go to hell and have them look forward to the trip. So, okay. Anybody else have any feedback on this, or should we move on to another subject?
Does Lisa have feedback?
Probably
Well,
Lisa.
The only thing that I was gonna say, I mean, I agree with everything that a lot of what's been said, because this is tough, and I agree with Sandy. I kind of feel the same way. Just reading that, they never know even how to set goals. So to ask them to do all that up front, I think it does get a little bit overwhelming. Maybe if you gave them this assignment after your first session when you explained goals or something. I mean, that's usually what I do, but I don't do everything. I do kind of a couple sessions up front. But the other thing that I was going to say on your other, not the one that Sam has up, but on the other email, can you scroll down, Sam, or scroll up? Just to the point of the bullet points, and maybe you're not even going to do this anymore if it is a little overwhelming, but really you only have 2 bullet points there. You have 1 to complete the win-win agreement, and you have 2 to select your individual that you'd like as a mentor. And then under the win-win agreement, you do A, select a personal non-confidential goal, and B, start clarifying your organizational business goal. And I even think that one little change would clean it up a lot, because then they're only doing 2 things, not 1, and it doesn't seem like such a daunting task. I mean, that was my only thing. If you stick with this exact email, that I thought might clean it up a little bit.
Okay. So Sam, I cannot hear you.
Oh, anybody else?
Now I hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that was one of the items. The other item was talking about the metrics and measurement and return on investment. Who would like to jump in and start that conversation?
Hey, Sam, can I say one more thing before we move on to that?
Yes.
So this makes me wonder too, in the, what do you call that site where we can go out and they have all the EPP and the ELD stuff out there that the group created?
My resource area of the LMI website?
No, that Nancy and everybody created all those forms, and we can go to that.
Okay. You're talking about Trepper Media.
Trepper
the
Media.
IGT.
Yeah. So this makes me wonder too, if that welcome letter that we initially send out to all of the new participants, how are they feeling? I mean, there's more than these 2 things. There's like 5 things we're asking them to do and to come to the class prepared with. I don't know. It just makes me wonder, maybe that's too much to send out for the first class or before the first class even starts. And I don't know if everybody uses that, but that's what I've been using. I don't know what everybody else uses, but
has it been working?
That's even more in depth than this. How's it working? Usually, because one of the things is the participant information form. Usually they come to class, and I would say 50-50 at best have the stuff done when they get there. And the other ones either, didn't get through it all or didn't quite understand it yet. And then on the goal part, rarely, if ever, do people come to class with goals, I would say, in my experience. Okay.
Now, the welcome letter that's going out, is it snail mail or email?
Email. And it has all those attachments on it.
Okay. Well, maybe we need to look at that.
Lisa, are you referring to the one that has the 4 questions about productivity, communication, personal organization, and teamwork?
No, this is the one that goes out in Trepper Media, and it's the congratulations, welcome rollout letter. And it basically says, welcome to the class. You've been selected. This is the date and where it's going to be. In preparation for the class, please complete these items. And then it has like 4 things listed. And then by the time you attach the pre-conference information form, the win-win goals, the leadership challenges, you attach the agenda, and there's like 6 attachments to it.
But I believe it also has these 4 questions. Karen did send this welcome letter to us a few weeks ago, and I believe she said it was from Nancy that she had received it.
Yeah, that's the same one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think the one on Trepper Media has 4 questions, but not the one I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, do you have a copy of it?
Yeah.
Do you want to send it to Roxanne? Well, send it to everybody in the group.
Yeah, I'll send it.
All right.
Okay, onward.
Okay. Well, we do have a couple of minutes left. Any feedback on going through the ROI and the material from Frank Kress?
So Sam, what we're saying today is the approach that Frank Kress has probably works in Canada, but doesn't work everywhere, because he actually sends an even longer letter as a welcome letter where he includes basically everything that I've included. The only thing I didn't include all the rest in this email that I presented. So you know, it's interesting. I mean, I do understand, and I totally agree that it's important that people feel at ease, because the feedback I got not too long ago, and which made me change some things, is that, oh, I feel so stressed out and I'm supposed to feel better.
One thing with Frank is Frank has positive expectations of what they need to do, and for whatever reason he has ability to communicate it, and that's just how he does decided to run the business up there in Canada. Now, whether everybody up in Canada does exactly what he does is questionable. Okay. Frank is Frank, and he sets it up with his clients ahead of time, what he's going to do and what it's about. And the thing you have to remember is these programs are not cheap. You know, it's one thing if they're going to come to a seminar, but this isn't. This is a course, and it's a pricey course, and things need to be done in order to be able to get the results. Okay, feedback from anybody? Pete, I see you have something here?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what you're talking about exactly, Sam.
Okay. Frank Kress did a webinar on ROI with a bunch of different forms that he uses with his participants and how he sets up the win-win agreement, etc. And I sent out the link to that, and people were going to go in, and you may not have caught that.
Yeah, I think I missed that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I did too. Could you resend it, Sam, please?
Well, I resent it this morning.
Oh, it's in that. All right, I'll find it then.
Yeah, and Sam, I couldn't see the video. I don't know why, but I was able to hear the audio, and it's quite comprehensive, and certainly would, I think, resonate with type A's, people who are already, I would say, reasonably accomplished, sophisticated thinkers, disciplined, and dedicated to a rigorous process of improvement. The way he lays it out, as far as I can tell, would appeal to individuals who execute at the higher level, and would justify, and I would say command, a premium for involvement. It's quite impressive. I think one of the things, and there were a number of things that I found particularly attractive about what he represented in that webinar, not least of which is the color coding. I couldn't see it, but I could imagine it because I'm familiar with some aspects of Gantt charting and charting best practices and timelines, so that, again, that imagery that was used to convey to prospective participants what to expect, when to expect it, in terms of the program outline, but also to help them think through how to track and measure improvement using charts and graphs with the color representation of, for example, what he described as the traffic light, green, yellow, red. To me, that makes it adds that visual dimension, which for many makes it easier to track and measure progress and ultimately celebrate. So I didn't listen to the entire thing, but I got to about halfway, and I was quite pleased with what he had to share.
Well, what I am going to do, I'm going to redo the video. I'm going to take it, bring it down, and I will upload it to YouTube, because YouTube will take just about any video and put it in their own format that they know works. And that way, if somebody wants to actually watch it, they can watch it on YouTube. So I will do that this week. The other thing about this session is when he did it, the feedback we got on it was very mixed. Frank is an engineer, and he approached this whole thing as an engineer, which, as we know, not everybody is an engineer and not everybody relates to it. We had some people that said it was an overkill. Some people like different aspects of it. You could take what you like. Don't worry about what you didn't. It's there to help people improve. There are basic things that we do in measurement. I was always taught to look for the KFI, key function indicator. Mm-hmm. What is one thing that if you focused on it is going to improve the result you're looking for? Just one thing. And not all kinds of Gantt charts and everything else. That's fine, but I don't know if I would start out with all that. I would start out simple and then progress. So if I'm doing a more of an in-house class and we're working on certain things, I may do the Gantt charts, et cetera, because we set that up ahead of time. Definitely, I don't think I would do it in a showcase.
Sam, this is Pete. I do have one little thing that I could say that it's helpful to me, is the more we give them to do before they get to class, the more anxieties they have. And if you follow the LMI kickoff process, you'll cover all the things we've been talking about, and you have an opportunity to get them started on the things that we do, the win-win and all these things. And if you sold the program to the economic decision maker, you've already told him about the return on investment and the win-win agreement and how critical it is. And then when they sign off on that manager-mentor agreement, it lists specific things that we require of the direct report, the person. And so I just think sometimes we try to complicate it too much, and the LMI kickoff session is so good that if we follow that, we're going to cover all of those things we've been talking about today without giving them too much anxiety to think about before they come to class.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at the program, the win-win agreement is in the program. So it's during the kickoff is when you first expose them to the actual win-win agreement.
Right.
And the goals conference, which is the next conference, is when you help them work through the SMART system, et cetera, and further clarify what it is that you want to help them to accomplish. So, the first exposure they have to the win-win really is in the kickoff, according to the facilitation guide.
And we have 8 weeks at least, however many y'all use, depending on what you do. I do a separate my time, the second session. So I give them 2 weeks to do all the things we ask them to do at the kickoff session. So they have plenty of time to do it. And we have 8 weeks to go through all of these things we've been going through and stressing to them how important it is to do that win-win agreement, to develop their SMART goals, and I get them to move their win-win agreement forward to each lesson they're working in. Put it in the plan of action of each section. And we have plenty of time to cover everything, and that's why the Paul J. Meyer process works so well. We could teach all this in 2 8-hour sessions, but that's not the way we do it. And we give them too much up front. I think that can potentially turn them off to what their anticipation of going through this program, usually very positive, or they wouldn't be there.
Okay. Any final thoughts from anybody?
We need to find the balance. It seems to me that from what I got today, I hear that we need to make sure that the participant looks forward to come to the program, and we need to ease them into the program. Even though I remember something Lisa said once, she said she tells people they will feel uncomfortable throughout the program, and that needs to be said too, because it's not like they're not going to be uncomfortable. So it seems to me we need to do a balancing act of supporting them. And I have listened to some things Pete has said in the past, and I like his approach. And I have to say, I think it's important that we all take into consideration also that every culture is different. Like here in Curacao in the Caribbean, it's a little bit different for various reasons. But also, I believe we live in different times. People are so much more stressed nowadays. So we need to take that into consideration also.
I would agree with you, but when you talk about uncomfortable, I think we automatically look at that word uncomfortable in a negative sense, and perhaps we even subconsciously present it as such. So I think uncomfortable is a good word, but it can be also a fun uncomfortable. It's getting out of your comfort zone and learning about yourself and really what your wants and desires, and sometimes even more important, the things you don't want. So I agree, uncomfortable is a key word there, but I would encourage anybody to put it in a more positive spin.
Mhm.
Sure. And I think that's a good idea. It is after 10 o'clock, so we need to conclude today, but we shall continue in 1 week. How's that? Isn't that something fun to look forward to?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. And it has been fun and learned a lot. Hopefully everybody else did too. Catch you in 1 week.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.